Nerdly presents the feed where the reels unwind. Off the real podcast, digging deep in the grind. 80 flicks, low cash, big dreams in the frame. No blockbuster hype, just the realest in the game. Reviews so sharp, we cut through the...
Hello everybody and welcome back to Nerdly Presents Off the Reel. This is an Off the Reel review and I'm going to be talking about a boxing movie called Heavyweight. Now you could be forgiven for thinking that Nerdly Presents Off the Reel is becoming a sharks and boxing podcast, because yes, I have reviewed quite a few shark movies as of late, and this is like the third boxing movie that I am going to be reviewing right now. After Swingbout and Salvable, we now have Heavyweight. This movie, I believe, is going to be opening up the Raindance Film Festival this year, so I will be doing exactly what I do, and that is reviewing this movie. Of course, you can go over to nerdly.co.uk, our British website, your favourite British website for all your news, reviews and exclusive interviews. We like to cover everything from the big budget to the low budget to the no budget, and this movie definitely sits in the lower end of the scale budget-wise. I will do what I normally do, and that is to talk about the plot of the movie with as few spoilers as humanly possible. Then I will get into the cast and the crew of the movie, which is where this one kind of lives and lies. Then I'll get into what I did and didn't like about this movie. Then I'll give you my final Nerdly Presents Off the Reel review rating. So let's just get into the movie Heavyweight from director Christopher M. Anthony, and I'll start off with the IMDb synopsis because I quite like doing that these days. And it simply states that a boxing coach prepares an underdog for a career-defining boxing championship match as their world starts to collapse under the pressure. And that is essentially what this movie is. We meet Derek Douglas. He's a young boxer, up-and-coming boxer. He's 13-0 and he's finally got the chance to take on a champion. So this is a big night for him. And when we meet him, he's coming into the arena. He's got his entourage with him. He's kind of walking through, doing glad-handing meets and greets and talking to some kids, talking to some other people that he knows, talking to friends, family, and everything like that. The press. We get to the changing room, and that's where the movie really slows down and becomes what it's going to be. Yes, we're going to spend our time in this changing room with Derek. Derek's in there with his coach, his cut man, his nutritionist, and one guy who's kind of like a bodyguard. Not really a bodyguard, but he's going to make sure people don't just walk in and out of the room. He's going to be sitting in there because that's where the psychological warfare before the fight always start. We do then find out via live feed one of his friends or somebody that he trains with, somebody that he spars with, a training partner, has at some point before the movie switched side, and so he's now on the other team. So now he's got to deal with that as well. And you want to talk about psychological warfare? That's the biggest thing. So now he's got to try and overcome that, which just leads to arguments. At one point he does hurt himself. He just zones out completely and ends up punching a mirror and ends up with some glass in his knuckles. So now they have to try and get that stuff out and make sure that he's ready for this fight. Make sure that the other guys don't really find out about it, that the board don't really find out about it. That is the movie in a nutshell. There's no point really diving into anything else, otherwise you're just going to get spoilers, and I don't really want to give spoilers for a movie like this, although there's not really many spoilers you can give. It is just kind of one of those very dialogue heavy, very emotionally driven, tense movies that you just have to bear with because you are stuck in this room with these people. So let's talk about cast and crew. Starting with our lead guy, Derek Douglas, played by Jordan Bolger, who I think is doing a fantastic part here. I think he's doing a great performance. Very intense, very serious when he needs to be, rarely breaks into any sort of levity. Once the movie really kicks in, you don't really get any. He's just very zoned in and ready to go and very serious. I liked all of this, what he's doing. I liked at the start how he's kind of being the showman when he's walking through the crowd, but then when he gets locked in or when things start to kind of fall apart around him, and by that I mean realizing that his best friend or his training partner is actually on the other side now, when those things start to happen, he really locks in. And I loved this serious side because you have to remember, this is a situation where this is the biggest night of your life. You need to be on your game. You can't find your brother. Your friend's on the other side. Your coach is being a little bit shifty for some strange reason. So it's kind of what's going on? I really, really liked what Jordan Bolger did here. I can't say I've seen him in anything else majorly, but he is a face that I recognize, and I do like what he's doing in this movie. Talking about his coach, we have got Nicholas Pinnock. Pinnock is an English actor, a British actor that I am a big fan of. I've seen him in lots and lots of things, and in this he's really getting to kind of flex his chops a lot. He's not always the biggest character in movies, he's not always the leading role, but he is always very good at what he does. A movie a few years back called Versus, a movie I was a massive big fan of. I'm a rap battle fan, so when Versus came out, I love a bit of rap battle. Shorty Horror was in there, so I'm a big fan of him as well. So that was a cool movie. Nicholas Pinnock has like a minor role in that movie. It's not a massive role, but every scene he's in, he just elevates. To see him in this movie, really getting a lot to work with, really getting a lot of dialogue to play with, when it comes to that like battle of everybody kind of making sure that he's ready to go out there and fight, and that the fight even can go ahead. Yeah, I loved everything Nicholas Pinnock was doing. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Pinnock. I want to talk about one character, but I don't really know what to say and how to describe what I feel about this actor. I will get his name wrong, so I do apologise in advance, but Ossie Ikele, he plays Kane, the training partner or the friend who's gone to the other side. And honestly, I can't think of enough good things to say about this character and about this actor. He is superb. When he comes into the changing room, because he has to watch the bandages getting done, again, psychological warfare. So when he comes into the room, the air just seems to be sucked clean out of it, and it's just tension. It's just moments of suspense through dialogue. When Kane comes in, you get easily the biggest sense of who all of these characters are, who this team is, and how fragile they actually are. And of course, you do need the odd Irishman to kind of throw a little bit of humour in there and to be the light-hearted relief of the movie. But also what I have noticed is when you're making a boxing movie and you're being as tense as you are, you're being as serious as you are, and you're using your score and your music to kind of build that up, sometimes just throwing an Irish voice in there, and I probably shouldn't say this, it might be a little bit mean, I don't really care, but throwing an Irish voice into the mix often just creates its own sense of chaos. When he starts talking, when he gets angry, when he gets funny, when he gets serious, when he gets like in the moment of like telling you what is going to happen, I can't help but just sit there and think, this guy like adds another level, another layer. The character is Robbie, he's played by Rob Malone. Genuinely, I have nothing really bad to say about Rob Malone in this movie. He does get some of the best lines in the movie, some great one-liners that he can really live and breathe with. So yeah, Rob Malone for me was kind of like an MVP of this film, absolutely. And then you've got a couple of extra people in there that you will know their names. Jason Isaacs, he's kind of like the promoter of the fight, so this fight will go ahead and it doesn't matter what the cost, it is happening. We've put too much into it. He's kind of a bit of a shitbag, but you do really sort of get the character. I like Jason Isaacs. He's only in 2 scenes. I imagine he probably only spent 1 day on set and he just had to come in, smash these scenes, and smash these scenes he does. He is very good. Very much for me, it felt like this was the name, this was a name that you could pin the movie to, and it makes it a little bit easier to get it out there. So let's get into what I did and what I didn't like, and that's where I'll talk about Christopher M. Anthony first. I think he's done a great job here. I do think this is a good movie. It's a very good movie. There's some great dialogue in here. There's some great suspense, some great tension building. My only real thing is, and this is a point of contention for me personally, because it does kind of devalue my enjoyment a slight little bit, and that is that I feel like I've already seen this movie. Like a couple of months ago, I reviewed a movie called Swingbout, and one thing that I said in that review was how original and fresh that concept and that idea felt to me. I'd never seen this side of the boxing world. Usually when you watch a boxing movie, yes, we see their lives outside of the boxing ring, but usually it takes place in the boxing ring. We're building up for a fight. That's kind of where we're going with this. Swingbout did this thing where we were spending our time backstage in the changing room where the psychological warfare does start, and we see the relationships between coaches, fighters, promoters. This movie kind of does that as well. I know that sometimes within the movie industry, trends can go around. Like one guy makes a Western and all of a sudden everybody's making a Western. Somebody makes an army movie, all of a sudden everybody's making war movies. You know, I know these things do happen and it is just a sign of the times usually. So that's totally fine. And again, like I say, I saw Salvable as well. So there's another boxing movie. So there's like 3 boxing movies. It did diminish my enjoyment just a little bit because because I felt like, okay, I've actually kind of seen this and not that long ago. I do think two very, very different movies, two similar movies, but both very different movies. But I do genuinely think he's done a brilliant job, and I think as a director, he's done a cracking job. He's brought in a wonderful cast who all perform brilliantly. He's brought in a cinematographer who just makes this room look absolutely gorgeous. Some of the colours, and you have like the little booths that they sit in when they're getting changed. They're all like nice and purple. There's like a neon tinge to all this, so it does kind of pop out a little bit. You go into the bathroom, and the bathroom's a little bit darker, so they're the kind of more serious moments with some serious undertones to them. There's not really anything that I didn't like about this movie. I just thought it was a good, solid movie. I think it gets in and it tells a really good story. We kind of realise early on that we are going to be spending all our time in here, so we're not necessarily going to be making it out to the ring for very long. No spoilers on that. You will have to watch the movie to see where that goes. But we do introduce enough characters and enough people that kind of keep things going. And Joplin Sibtain, who plays David, the guy that I mentioned right at the start, who's sort of like the bodyguard, but not really the bodyguard, he just sort of like stands outside and doesn't let people in or out. He does add sort of a level of security to this whole thing. Like, people aren't allowed to come in and go out, so neither are we. We're not really allowed outside until David says it's okay for us to go outside. And I love that kind of feeling that it gave the movie. It really sort of adds a different layer to it, which I felt like I was stuck in this room as much as they were. And another shout out I did forget was Blake Harrison, plays kind of the producer of the fight. He's sort of making sure people get to where they're meant to be when they're supposed to be there. Another thing I really liked is the score. I've already kind of mentioned, tiptoed around the score, but I think the score of this movie is absolutely fantastic. I would love to see this movie up on a big screen, a massive cinema screen, so that I could really kind of soak in that sound and have that sound just come bombarding out at me, because I love moments like that. Moments when things get really, really, really quiet. There's not a lot of dialogue, and you just have this little sort of score working its way through your mind and really digging into who you are and what you think. That's where a lot of the heavy lifting gets done in a movie like this. Things I've said about other movies before, but that is where the heavy lifting gets done, because sometimes a little bit of sound can do a lot more than somebody telling us how they feel. So I might as well just get into my rating, my Nerdly Presents Off the Reel review rating, and honestly, I'm going to give this movie a 4. It's a very, very strong 4, and it kind of only loses that point due to the fact that I feel like I've already seen this movie and not that long ago. There are moments that I did feel like we could maybe move on from this scene. We could maybe... The thing is, this movie's only like 93 minutes, 100 minutes. It's not a long-ass movie, but there are one or two scenes that I felt like maybe we could just cut that a little bit. I don't really know where you would chop anything, but there were moments that I just felt like were taking a bit too long. Or maybe we could have done something else here rather than staying too long on this part. I do absolutely want to mention, though, something that you rarely do get to see in boxing movies, especially when you're doing this kind of thing where you're stuck in one location, which is your changing room. There is a scene towards the end of the movie, near the end of the movie, where Nicholas Pinnock puts like the brace around him, and he puts the mitts on so that Derek can like do a little bit of like training with him to warm himself up. That scene tells you absolutely everything you need to know about this movie. Everything is conveyed in that scene through these two actors, and it is fantastic. It's done really well. You've got things going on outside the room that we kind of see a little bit of, but what's going on inside the room is a microcosm of the movie. And it tells you so much about mental health, it tells you so much about doubting yourself, it tells you so much about believing in yourself, it tells you so much about relationships between father figures and sons. But yeah, this one for me is a 4 out of 5. It is a very, very solid 4 out of 5, and I hope people do check it out when they get a chance, whether you see it on the big screen or whether it comes out on streaming and you get to see it. I recommend going to the cinema if you can, because this movie will look dope as shit on the cinema. Please do check it out, and if you do see it, hit me in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought. My name is Kevin Hallen. I'm going to get myself away now because I'm kind of just rambling, and hit me down there and we'll talk about this movie a little bit more. But for now, go over to nerdly.co.uk, check out all the reviews we have over there, check out my reviews down below, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and ding that notification bell. For now, I'll be back on the next one.